From dispensing equipment and storage tanks to monitoring technologies and control infrastructure, the specification and quality of site equipment can directly influence operational integrity. While lower cost alternatives may appear comparable at a surface level, differences in design standards, material quality, certification, and system integration can have significant downstream impacts. Investing in robust, fit-for-purpose equipment and engineered solutions is essential, not only for meeting regulatory compliance and safety requirements, but also for ensuring measurement accuracy, minimising lifecycle costs, and maintaining constant uptime. In today's episode, with Jean Guillomard, Quality Director, and Siobhan Finch, Dispenser Product Manager, we're examining a critical principle that underpins performance across the entire fuel supply chain. Not all equipment is created equal. Because in this industry, cutting corners doesn't just cost money, it can cost trust. So if you've ever wondered whether paying more upfront is really worth it, this episode is for you. Hi, thank you both for joining me today.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Sean.
So we'll just get right started. From an engineering perspective, what are the key differences between low cost and premium equipment that operators might not immediately see? Jean, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, when you buy like a fuel dispenser at first, I guess when it comes out of the packaging, like it might look the same. And maybe during the first few like week, months, like there is not really a difference. However, like, when you speak about like premium, I think it's about like long term. It's about like low total cost of ownership. And what that mean for a fuel dispenser, the first thing is about the pumping unit and the meter. You want something that's going to like last, going to cope with any type of fuel, and a meter that's going to be accurate over time. Because it might be cheap when you buy the product, but long term, if your meter is drifting, it's going to cost you a lot. So all the hydraulic, of course, like that's super important. I can also think about the material, so the cladding of the dispenser. I mean, you buy a brand new dispenser, you buy maybe like a brand new car, like, I mean, it looks nice, it's shiny. Is it going to last? And for us, at least at Dover Fueling Solution, that is something that we pay like a particular attention to. So the type of material we select, and also the type of paint that we select and how we paint the dispenser. And we can speak more about that after. But those are the key differences, I would say.
Yeah. No, of course, so it's not always first appearances mean high quality, is it? It's like you said, it's what's under the hood, and you named some very specific components and materials there in terms of cladding that retailers need to be aware of. Siobhan, from your point of view, what are the key differences between low total cost of ownership and premium equipment?
The first one is reliability. If you have high quality, field proven, tested components within your dispensers are going to last at least their lifetime.
Yeah.
You're going to have superior uptime in field. So obviously less maintenance required as well should anything break down. And really from that, you'll have a kind of quality built to last dispenser. Yeah. Jean kind of touched on obviously making sure that your meter is a high quality meter that's got minimal drift, that's got reliable performance under all market conditions, but not all meters are actually created equal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of our meter and the calibration that it goes through and the number of touch points that each of the data has, we can ensure that the data accuracy on our meter is way superior to what's actually needed for weights and measures.
Oh,
but
okay.
Really, when you look at total cost of ownership, I guess what sometimes unfortunately gets seen is it's everything above at the very, very top of the iceberg. So it's all the visible things. So what does a dispenser look like? How much is it going to cost me?
Yeah.
What they don't say is everything below. They don't say how reliable it's going to be, how much it's going to cost in field to carry out maintenance, as Jean alluded to before. Is it compatible with new and emerging fuels which are out there? Are our meters, are your seals compatible with what's future? What future fuels in the market? And then looking at even down to the environmental impact of the dispenser itself. So there's a lot of things that you've got to take into consideration when you look into the overall quality, but also total cost of ownership of your dispenser.
Yeah, of course. I think it just kind of reiterates the point that low cost doesn't always mean the best level of investment for your business. And just some of those examples that you shared there really emphasize why cutting costs, even though budget might not always be somewhere for that wiggle room, it definitely should be a deep consideration in terms of what you're actually investing in and what that means for the longevity of your business and the overall total cost of ownership. Jean, just coming back to you, in terms of total cost of ownership, why is it more relevant than upfront capital cost?
Because when you buy a fuel dispenser, like you don't buy it for like a couple of years. I mean, it's probably 10 years, 15 years. I mean, I've seen some of our product like up to like 30 years later, like still in the field, and actually even in harsh condition. I mean, call me weird, but yeah, I like to see like, all dispensers, take picture of dispenser when I travel or go on holidays. And we do see of some of our dispenser, seaside, so really harsh environment, and they're still there. So, okay, you might have paid like a premium price at the beginning, but 30 years later, like the dispenser is still there. Also, if you speak about like meter accuracy, even like a 1% deviation of your meter over like a period of time, over like million liters, I mean, that's going to negate like whatever saving you might have done when you bought the equipment at first. So to me, it's not about like the cost of the original equipment. It's about like what you will have to pay to like make it live and how long you can make it last. There could be question about yes, but spare parts also are really expensive. Yeah, they are really expensive if you have to replace the parts. It will always be less expensive if you can like make a pumping unit last like 15 years, or like if you have to replace the pumping unit like 3 times, the part might be cheaper, but if you replace it 3 times, it will be like more expensive anyway than replacing it or not replacing it at all. So it's about the long-term cost, not just the initial investment.
And even when you think about the initial investment, it's taken into consideration things like your installation.
Yeah.
So how easy is that dispenser going to be able to be installed on on site? Are you replacing an existing Dover, whether it be Tokheim or Wayne dispenser, or are you replacing a competitor dispenser in field? And how has the dispenser been designed to make sure that the installation is very easy to carry out with minimal changes to pipework?
Yeah. I think that's something maybe initially a lot of retailers don't consider because they just need a new dispenser and they're looking and weighing up the options, aren't they? When we talk about total cost of ownership, is there a simple framework or method for evaluating that?
So from a sales standpoint, there definitely is. It's not something obviously I can go into a lot of detail on, but there is a model that we work through to understand the kind of total cost of ownership of a dispenser. But if, say, for example, you wanted to break it down into maybe different chunks, you've got the price of the dispenser itself. That's your overall investment that's visible when you're getting your budget signed off. But then what you have to look into, as mentioned before, things like your installation costs, your maintenance costs, your cost of quality, dare I say, Jean? So, cost of field failure, training costs, whether that be for, your internal staff or for your maintainers, should you outsource it. the actual running cost of the dispensers,
Yeah.
any environmental impact that you've got to do. So there's lots of different things that you need to take into consideration. It's not purely down to the outlay, the initial investment itself. It's everything else that comes around it. And as Jean said before, we've got dispensers in field that last way over the expected 10 years.
Yeah.
And there is also, I think we haven't mentioned, but cost of like initial weight and measure. And I think that goes to what you said, Siobhan, about the installation cost. For us, it comes out of the factory, it's plug and play. You don't need to call or at least for the MID country, you don't need to call local weight and measure. The dispenser is ready to go in use and ready to go for the first commercial use. If you buy maybe dispenser from, east somewhere, it's not always the case. It might mean that you need to consider cost of weight and measure per nozzle, and that can go up quite quickly also. So yeah, you need to consider the full scope.
Yeah. It's funny, we talked about this earlier in terms of environmental compliance, and we're talking about weights and measures now. How do variations in material quality, and manufacturing standards impact durability and safety over time? Jean, I'll come to you first with your expertise in quality.
Yeah, I mean, there is, I think, in terms of for example, the seals that we use. I mean, what we have in the hydraulic circuit of the dispenser. So I mean, it's a type of seal that really doesn't react with anything. In the life of a dispenser, we'll have maybe different type of fuel, different type of additive, depending on what's happening in the world. There might be different supply, and with a seal that's maybe not to the quality of the ones we have, then you might start to see things like shrinking, expanding, meaning that you will have leaks appearing. Also about the type of casting and material that we'll use, you can have more wear, or things can wear faster, especially in harsh condition. So it will be even the component inside the meter. We have things that are really specific, because anything that we'll have mentioned under the ring that we use has been tested over what we call live test. So we don't just specify things and hope for the best, but actually we go and test things. And obviously hydraulic importance, but also I spoke at the beginning about the paint, and I have people telling me look, I mean, that's a normal color, you can get it from any supplier. Actually, it's not true, because the paint we've developed them over the year with our supplier, because we always try to achieve a balance in between. So there's let's say three things. One thing is how flexible is the paint, because when the dispenser comes out of the factory, it's all nice. There is no dent, everything's fine. You put it in the field, somebody might arrive at the pump, open the door of the car, and then knock the panel. What we don't want is that within reason, we don't want the paint to crack. So we want the paint to follow the panel to avoid any cracks, to avoid any ingress of water that would then start the corrosion. So that's one parameter. The other parameter that we want to avoid scratches. So if you have a paint that's too soft, so if we were to go too flexible, then it's not going to look nice over time. And I know here is only a cosmetic, perspective, and it might not matter for some of our customers, but for some of our customers, it does matter. And then the other thing is the resistance to fuel. So additives, ethanol, they're harsh chemical on the paint, especially on darker colors. Sometimes you can see that it's staining the paint. So we need to play with those three parameters, plus we need the color to be the same for the next 10 years. We don't want things to fade or change color. So you need to play with all those parameters. And what that means is that you can't just take something off the shelf and then hope for the best.
Yeah.
It's actually really specific development that we've made, that we spend lots of time to like get right, and from one color to another, it's going to be a different recipe. Because of the pigment, it's going to react differently. I mean, I could speak about it for like hours, because it's genuinely something we're spending a lot of time on. On top of that, like corrosion also, where like, you know, every material we use, we test them here with some cabinets. Within 6 weeks, we can simulate like 10 years in the field. But there is time spent to study those things and to make sure we get the right thing. And we just don't select the cheapest material or the cheapest paint. It's whatever is going to give like the best performance in the field, so that we meet our customer expectations.
Yeah. And that ties back into that total cost of ownership piece that we just spoke about, that it's not just, here's your dispenser, we hope it lasts for 10 years. It's all of these different elements. And to your point, Jean, paint, which some people might think is just a cosmetic thing and it not be 100% their focus, or they don't place a lot of importance on it, it's actually a lot more complex than just picking a color that they like. It's a big deal. And I don't think maybe a lot of retailers out there looking to make the investment understand the effort that goes into ensuring that your brand is represented throughout the entirety of that dispenser's life cycle as well.
You know, the effect it will have on your brand and on your forecourt. If your dispenser has dents or looks like it's rusting because of the poor corrosion levels.
Yeah.
And on our dispensers, and I know Jean could probably give you all the full technical part behind it as well, but we have kind of really strong corrosion levels. C4 levels is standard coming out of factory.
Yeah.
But we also offer C5 for those extreme environments and marina environments whereby you're very, very, very close to the sea.
Yeah.
You know, we speak about corrosion as like a cosmetic issue. We've seen products from the competition where it's not it's a cosmetic issue, but it becomes also a structural issue where, like, you know, we have a fuel dispenser crumbling. In terms of like safety, it's not there anymore. And that's also obviously something we do consider. I mean, you have to consider a drive off. If you have a drive off on a dispenser where the structure of the dispenser is like rusted,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not going to work. And then it becomes like a safety concern for the product and for the product owner and on the forecourt.
Yeah. And I think that ties in quite nicely to the fact that the overall dispenser and your investment in this dispenser lies in the internal componentry and the overall aesthetic as well, and how that can impact the internal componentry overall.
Yeah.
Talking about safety, how often do regulations involve? We're talking about the C4 and the C5 on the paint. I imagine there are different regulations related to internal componentry, and how important are those? How often do they change, and how can operators future-proof their dispenser investments?
So the kind of major directives, obviously, we follow in terms, and Jean jump in here as well, at MID and also ATEX compliance. But you know, the majority, so the large EU directives and standards, they're somewhat constantly evolving, to be honest, Sarah. And by that, I can say, you know, as new technology arrives, directives pretty much have to keep up to date with it in order not to block any markets, to block any products to market, or and to allow for fair trade. So I think there was a recent one that's came through, and that was for a directive of measuring instruments to incorporate electric vehicle charging, similar to what was there prior for EV as a conventional fuel. But in that case, the directive was probably about 10 to 15 years too late, because chargers have been out for many, many years now under national regs.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for a harmonised European standard at that stage. But then if you look at other evolving standards currently, you can look at things like Cyber Resilience Act. And that's all about cybersecurity on your products, on any product with a digital element. So that pretty much is looking into ensure that no cyber attacks can be made that have a major consequence on the infrastructure and public systems.
Yeah. And that's equally important, isn't it? That digital element. We're talking about the physical dispenser that everyone knows and knows how to refuel, but there are digital elements to the dispensers now in terms of payment and media that are also a key consideration when we're talking about investment.
That's right. And, that Act in question, once it actually comes into force, it'll not only apply to new products, but also to products that are already in the field as well. So, as a whole, directives, they continue to evolve, whether they're European and harmonised, whether they're national. But we do have a team, obviously, behind us who are continuously monitoring, who are part of the relevant forums to ensure that our dispensers and all of other products within Dover continue to adhere to those legislations and have, strong voices in terms of how something could or may not work.
Yeah. And then, John, just coming to you, from a quality perspective and an engineering perspective, how can operators future-proof their investments as regulations and directives evolve?
Yeah, I think sometimes you need to think about like regional level, where let's say like for a certain country, we might deliver a dispenser without an option because that's not something that's needed. We could take like temperature compensation just to illustrate the point. If let's say in 5 years time, like it becomes mandatory, I mean, we always look at how things can be retrofitted in a dispenser, which means that, in 5 years time, you need ATC, fine, we can provide it and it can be fitted inside the dispenser. So even without speaking of like, innovation, because we have like such wide portfolio with like all those options, and it's always things that can be retrofitted in time and added. Could be the same with VR, for example. And it's also something you need to look at when you're going to order a dispenser, even if you don't have at least like all the options or everything. In the future, like if you invest in the Dover Fueling Solution dispenser, you're more than likely able to like upgrade it, even add media, for example, or payment to your dispenser. Whereas with some other brand, like you actually need to replace like the full thing if you want to add those options in the future.
Yeah. And that again comes in that total cost of ownership aspect, doesn't it? In terms of once you invest in a piece of equipment, you want it to last the entirety of its life cycle. And that includes being able to retrofit or upgrade said dispenser to meet these new regulations and directives. And to your point, John, not the same can be said across the entire industry for all manufacturers. One of the other things that we touched on briefly was the system integration when you invest in a new dispenser. So how important is system integration when selecting equipment? So for example, ensuring compatibility between dispensers, payment, and overall forecourt control as well.
It's really important to be connected, as you know, Sarah. Your dispenser's got to be able to talk to your forecourt controller. Your payment system's got to be able to talk to the forecourt controller as well. Everything, should be connected and should be aligned.
I know from like, live examples, like where, I mean, you have systems that don't speak together. All of a sudden you need to like invest in some, can't find the word now, but like, something that's going to do a translation from one system to another. And at first when you were doing your investment, you thought like, well, that's it, like just be like plug and play and everything's going to like speak together. No, you need to start to invest into some like, device that's going to like translate in between like one piece of equipment and another, and costs do increase. So to have an ecosystem where like that everything is going to like communicate, work together, and speak together, it's critical.
Yeah. If you're looking to lower your overall investment in one piece of equipment, what you might not be considering is any additional investment you might have to make to ensure that level of connectivity that modern forecourts today need and consumers expect as well. just coming back to budget constraints and that investment level we touched on at the start. When operators are facing budget constraints, how should they prioritise spending to balance cost with performance and reliability? Siobhan, I'll come back to you.
They have to look at the total, the total lifetime of how long they expect the dispenser in field. If you're only looking at that initial investment, then the chances are you're going to have quite a short-term approach
Mm-hmm.
and not really look into, whilst you might pay a little bit more for a dispenser that has high quality components, it will be tried and trusted in field, it will be tested, it'll have high quality, robust components. All of those things will make it stand the test of time.
Yeah. John, what areas should never be compromised in terms of budget constraints?
I think the safety of the equipment, because you have customers on the forecourt, families. I mean, the last thing you want is anybody to be hurt. So, I mean, to make sure you buy from like a reliable source that is like certified, I think it's critical. Behind that, then if we look at the cost of, I mean, how much the equipment is going to cost you over time, it's around the hydraulics. So the meter and the pumping unit. If you have something that's accurate, like over time, you're going to like, I was going to say save money. No, I mean, you're going to avoid to have to like waste money or give money away if your meter like is dispensing more than what's on the screen. And then we spoke about the seal, for example, and like leaks and things like that. Again, so it's all about the hydraulics, where we should never compromise, because any leaks, you might actually end up with product going to the ground, and then again, there like you are in trouble in terms of the cost. So safety of the equipment, 100%. The accuracy of your meter and reliability of your pump is probably like the next one. And then like it depends how long you want to make it last, but the corrosion, the reliability of the structure of your product is probably like the number 3.
Yeah. I think they're all important considerations. And I just want to come back to one of the points that you'd said in terms of like accurate measurement when it comes to the meter. What role does accurate measurement and calibration play in the overall operational efficiency and loss prevention when it comes to a dispenser?
I mean, that's the crook of it. Like, if you don't get that right, then like, yeah, there is no point like buying a dispenser. If you consider a dispenser, maybe on, one nozzle, you have like a million liter. If you have a deviation of like 1%, you're speaking of like 10,000 liter lost. Today, like, here in the UK, we're close to the £2 mark. I know in Europe, like, we're over the €2. You're just speaking for one nozzle for like 20,000 euros that you would lose. On a big side, that's in a year. Average 6 nozzle per dispenser, four dispenser per side. You're above the 100,000. Well above the 100,000 mark.
Yeah.
It's a basic. If the meter is not accurate, then like, yeah, I don't know what to say, but if you don't get that right, then good. Like there's no point selling fuel.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a 1% defect on a meter in terms of calibration can have that big of an impact, and that really does put that low cost, potentially low quality dispenser into perspective.
Yeah. And again, I'm saying 1%. That's a bit extreme, but even if you like divide that by 10, like 0.1%, it's still massive.
Yeah.
It's still like a big cost. And then if you have a meter that go like completely wrong, so that fails, then you could speak of like 3, 4, 5%, and then like the costs, they do explode at that time.
And I think as well, it's maybe important to mention here, particularly in the evolving circumstances faced across the entire region in terms of fuel shortages and fuel prices, that is not something that retailers or large networks really want to have to be doing, because their stocks are not going to be accurate either when it comes to wet stock management or their automatic tankage.
It becomes even more important now for the operator. You can also think of, so speaking of the case where a meter would dispense more, but a meter that dispense less, as the end customer driving your car, I mean, people
Yeah.
are also going to be a lot more, how do you say, aware of those things. And, if you have something that's deviating quite a lot and dispensing not enough, like you might also face like, bad reputation or publicity if people say like, look, actually, when I go to that station, I feel like I'm getting a bit more. And I mean, that's difficult to judge, but I mean, for big deviation, like you have that risk.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider, isn't it? If you had one piece of advice for retailers or operators making site or equipment investments today or in the next few years,
First thing I would say is just don't base it on the initial investment that you see. Speak to people within your organization
Yeah.
who will be physically using that dispensers, whose role is to go out and, maintain dispensers and understand um, exactly the environment that it's going to be used to ensure that your dispenser will last its lifetime.
yeah, no, it's a valuable piece of advice, particularly if they're the ones firsthand getting feedback from motorists who are on the site, who are actually using the equipment as well. That's some valuable insight can be learnt from our audience, not just from ourselves who are in product marketing, product management, and quality as well. Jean, coming to you, what would be your one piece of advice for retailers and operators?
I mean, obviously agree with Siobhan, so around like total cost of ownership. Also, what's important is the support network, I would say. If you buy something, like if something go wrong, am I going to get the right support? Am I going to get, technical support to resolve like, possible issues or misunderstanding? Am I going to get support if I want to like activate the warranty of the product? And I have to say, like, we do offer that. I think we can be at the time like quite close with like our distributor and customer to like resolve issue if they are there. And I think that's an important, or to me, like a key component. Because if you buy something and then all of a sudden something go wrong and you go and search for help and there is nobody out there, it can become difficult. I think at the Overshooting Solution, like we do have that network with our specialists in the field, so in different regions, then like the support from the different factories and the quality team. And I think that is something to consider.
Yeah. And I think that raises another valuable point, doesn't it, in terms of when you invest in a dispenser, if you are looking to service or maintain a dispenser with new parts, to always look at original equipment manufacturers as well and not buy spare parts at a reduced cost, because that also can impact warranty, impact safety, can't it?
Without a doubt, yeah. You've got to ensure that the correct standard of spare part is put back in the dispenser to ensure that it operates efficiently. And
Yeah.
you can't guarantee if you're buying under an OEM brand that it's going to be the same part that we use within our manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, we've seen sometimes the impact of such things. I mean, a number of time, like I've received complaints about a situation, and at first, like we raise question about like, wow, what's happening? What have we done? And then either we go in the field or we return the part, and surprise, those are not all parts. And here the explanation on why we have the problem. Yeah, I mean, again, to me, sometimes it's back to like the safety of the product also. They are certified like ETEX, and there is a reason for it. Complicated norm that's, ask us to do things a certain way. It can be like, seen as a constraint sometimes, but there is a reason why we have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, OEM parts all the way
Yeah.
to avoid any problems.
Yeah, it's not worth the minute saving when you think
Mm-mm.
about overall safety or reputational damage as well. So it's very clear today that when it comes to the fuel industry, equipment selection is not just a procurement decision. It can be a strategic one as well. And like we've discussed today, lower cost options may seem attractive in the short term, but the long-term implications, whether through increased maintenance, operational risks, safety issues, or system inefficiencies and malfunctions, they can far outweigh any initial savings, and sometimes it's just not worth it. It's very clear from today's conversation that it's incredibly important to evaluate equipment through the lens of total cost of ownership and what that means. And it is different for everyone based on your overall site as well. It's very important for retailers and anyone listening to look beyond upfront price and consider lifecycle performance, reliability, and integration, so you can make informed future-proof decisions. Jean, Siobhan, thank you both very much for joining me today, and I look forward to speaking with you both again very soon.
More than welcome.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to Not All Equipment is Created Equal. We hope you enjoyed this episode with Jean and Siobhan. If you'd like to support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a review. To catch the latest from Dover Fueling Solutions, you can follow us on LinkedIn or visit our website at www.doverfuelingsolutions.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next month where we continue to fuel the conversation.